But there is breaking news about White House interns, and it doesn't involve a cigar or anything untoward in that way. However, it does involve absolutely disgusting, entitled conduct, and I'll tell you how. NBC News reporting that the White House interns now, more than 40 of them, are demanding a ceasefire in the Middle East. The interns. This is what these lunatic leftists have wrought. You are now having interns demand things of the President of the United States, who has been good enough to give them a position in the White House, temporary position for their resumes. These are probably all the kids of donors and so on. What a bunch of brats. We, the undersigned, fall 2023 White House and Executive Office of the President interns will no longer remain silent on the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people. We heed the voices of the American people and call on the administration to demand a permanent ceasefire. We're not the decision makers of today, but we aspire to be the leaders of tomorrow, and we will never forget how the pleas of the American people have been heard and thus far ignored. Then they say they went to work for this administration because of our shared values and the profound belief that under your leadership, America has the potential to be the nation that stands for justice and peace. And then it goes on to say, you disappointed us. We call on you to call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire right now, yada, 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 yada. And guess what? These courageous souls who, as I say, almost certainly got these jobs thanks to their parents' donations, did not put their names on the letter. They would like to remain anonymous. They want to be anonymous, entitled brats, and ballless for that matter as well, not putting their names on anything. So, Stu, do you feel inspired by them? You think we're going to get some action at the White House in response to this?
Incredibly brave, Megyn. Wow, that's really impressive.
Yeah.
This is, I guess, what you get, though, when you turn over the intellectual leadership of your movement to Greta Thunberg. You wind up with a bunch of people who don't know anything about what they're talking about. And this is the future of the Democratic Party, right? Like, we can sit here and mock the interns, but these are the up and coming voices. These are the people who are going to the fancy schools, that are getting the high quality internships, that have a pathway for them to the leadership of the future Democratic Party. And this is really where they are. And the point itself is so insane. I mean, they had a pause in action until Hamas broke it. If I may steal a point from your executive producer, Steve Krakauer, nobody ever seems to ask Hamas if they want a ceasefire. Everyone keeps arguing for one on their behalf, but they don't seem to want one at all. They want one from Israel.
They keep releasing statements saying that 10-7 was just a dress rehearsal and there'll be many more.
Exactly. Like what they want is to stop getting the wrong side of the ceasefire, but continue firing as much as they want on their side. That's not how any of this works. And of course, you're at a point where this has been disgusting behavior by so many on the left. And I do think maybe the optimistic part of me, which is incredibly small at this point, Megyn, sees a little bit of light in some people on the Democratic side, where the left is, I think, a little bit awakened. I mean, they kept thinking anti-Semitism equals Charlottesville, the 14 people with tiki torches that we were supposed to be so terrified about. But they're seeing thousands of people every single day in cities across the country, in colleges across the country, doing Charlottesville times 5, 10, 20, arguing for the genocide of all Jews. And we're supposed to sit back and just kind of take this. I think maybe some people on the left, John Fetterman's one. I mean, even Hillary Clinton's made some decent statements.
She's been not bad,
on
I have to say. Yeah, I'm surprised.
I know. I don't know if I get kicked off the radio for saying that. But I mean, it does feel odd that some people on the left have a little bit of awareness on this issue and are calling it out. But man, the voices are not loud enough.
By the way, you can feel free to steal liberally from Steve Krakauer. I do it myself all the time. So, Dave, the whiny interns, and that takes us over to their peers who are still on the college campuses, who have just proven to be a nightmare. I mean, an absolute embarrassment. We'll get to the testimony we saw from the university presidents on Capitol Hill in 1 second. But I want to start with this. There's been a lawsuit filed against the University of Pennsylvania. It's not the first one. There's a couple of lawsuits that have been filed. New York University, I think, was one. The University of California at Berkeley. Because what these students are alleging is that they're not being protected. These Jewish students on campus, their civil rights are not being protected by these campus administrators. And in this Penn case, University of Pennsylvania, this is the Ivy League, and that was one of the presidents who testified on Capitol Hill yesterday. They claim Penn committed egregious violations of federal civil rights law by selectively enforcing its rules of conduct to avoid protecting Jewish students from hatred and harassment. They also say that they hired rabidly anti-Semitic professors and ignored students' pleas for protection. So one of the plaintiffs in this case, Eyal Jacoby, spoke at a preference yesterday, and take a listen to Jacoby's description of what happened on campus.
36 hours ago, I, along with most of campus, sought refuge in our rooms as classmates and professors chanted proudly for the genocide of Jews while igniting smoke bombs and defacing school property. The neighboring university's president swiftly denounced the incident, and yet our president cannot. Because the glorious October 7th, and you're a dirty little Jew, you deserve to die, are words said not by Hamas, but by my classmates and professors. And because despite all of this, I am adamant and hopeful that we will not accept, least of all embrace, this horrific new normal on college campuses today. During COVID, strict guidelines governed everything from class attendance and graduation walks. Yet now, when students and faculty defy policies to intimidate Jewish students, where is the same resolute enforcement? Nonetheless, I refuse to go back to 1939, when Jews had to hide their religious symbols and hide who they are due to the intimidation and harassment of us. I used to think this was nonsense, fear-mongering, until I was made aware that Penn recommended to students, quote, not wear clothing/accessories related to Judaism. Hundreds of posters mocking the hostages featuring cows instead of humans adorned Penn's campus 2 weeks ago. While on my way to class, I was greeted with chalk reading 90% of pigs are gas chambered. As a student, despite what my university says, I do not feel safe.
And he speaks for so many of us who knew that there was, of course, anti-Semitism in the world, but really didn't know that it existed to this extent. And it is frightening. It is reminiscent of 1939. And, you know, Megyn, I think you were right to relate this to these White House interns. And here's how the White House interns should be handled. They should be brought into a room and told, there's a very well-written letter that's very brave of you, you're all fired. The ones who signed it, the ones who didn't sign it. And this is the reason why. That letter didn't get sent because they think that Joe Biden cares what a bunch of 22-year-olds think. That letter was sent to embarrass Joe Biden, their boss. That letter was sent to humiliate their boss and try to force him into doing what they want done because they think it's that important. And it's exactly what we see these students on the college campuses doing. The students on the college campus are saying, I will not be stopped from yelling from the river to the sea. I will not be stopped from saying horrible anti-Semitic things and making people feel unsafe because I need to stop this genocide in Palestine because what I believe in is so important that nothing else matters. And it's awful. It's really, really bad.
Negative dings on credit reports happen to all sorts of people from all socioeconomic backgrounds. Understanding the credit landscape can be extremely tough, and spending the time to dispute and repair these so-called dings can be a full-time job. Good luck to you if you already have one of those and children or anything else going on. For starters, you have to deal with 3 separate credit bureaus. It's a massive headache. It's also a common misconception that people with poor credit scores are just those who don't pay their credit card bills. No, these can be very hardworking people who are negatively affected by divorce, identity theft, medical debt, student loans, what have you. And they just don't have time or, to fix it, or they're too overwhelmed by the process. But if you don't address negative credit items, they can haunt you for years to come, and when it counts the most, like getting a mortgage at a competitive rate. The good news is that our sponsor, Lexington Law, wants to help. Go to lexingtonlaw.com and start today with a free consultation and review. Tell them Megyn sent you at lexingtonlaw.com. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.